This is episode 306 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Dio Morales, and today I'm joined by Marcel. I scotasiti sono diliosi Manzano.
Say sotacetti or sotacetti.
Sotacetti sono delicioso.
Yes.
What did you make me say? Delicious.
I don't know. You'll figure it out later.
Oh, gosh. All right. Will, give me those white versus red. Hagewood.
Been too long since we had a good lightsaber fight. Let's go.
And Ryan, celebrate good times. Come on. Sanazuski.
Celebrations everywhere, all around.
That's right. So as for announcements and news, Star Wars Celebration was this last weekend. They just wrapped it up, I believe. Is it over now? I don't know. I know that all the social medias and websites were talking about it. I think it's over now. By the time you're listening to this, if you watch this later, it should be done. There was so much news and announcements, and if we have time today, we're going to cover them, as well as maybe what they mean for the future of X-Wing, what kind of content we might be getting added to our game. And if we don't have time for that today, not a big deal. We'll just talk about it next week. But we're here every week to talk about X-Wing and Star Wars, so we kind of like that. Our podcast episodes brought to you by our Gold Squadron patrons. Thank you to all of you for your support. Look for a post coming soon in the next couple weeks about how some changes are coming to the Patreon. We're still trying to figure some things out, but by now, everything for Patreon is shipped. So if you haven't gotten it yet, especially if you're in the UK, Europe, anywhere that's not the United States, it should be coming soon. If you're in the US, you should have it by now. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing that in people's hands. I've definitely seen people on Discord posting and stuff like that. Our next goal for shipping stuff is any backtrack of prizes. People who either things have gotten lost, they haven't gotten them, they're missing, broken. All that is our next kind of foray into our shipping adventure. So, very, very, very soon. As for what are we talking about today? Oh, actually, sorry. One other thing. By the way, if you're in the Minnesota-ish region, you need to hook up with our boy Grimwolf and Lambolo. Right now, they're working on getting a tournament set up in the region. I don't know much about the exact details, but I know that they are two hardworking, great community builders, and they're trying to get something to happen. So if you're in the state of Minnesota, I would get in contact with them. Hit them up on Discord, Grimwolf and Lambolo. Send them a message or tag them in general and say, hey, I heard you're doing something in Minnesota. I want to go, or I want to help. I'm sure as long as you just show up, or you just want to know more information, I'm sure they'll get you hooked up. And yes, there's some information, it looks like, posted in the non-GSP events in Discord. So go ahead and hook them up. Alrighty. Will, do we have a date already?
Yeah, they are announcing Saturday the 13th in Duluth, Minnesota. So check out I believe it's Twin Cities X-Wing Facebook, and get connected with those guys.
And then other events that I saw announced over this last week or so, we know that Nova Open officially announced that they're going to have a world qualifier. I mean, not surprised, right? It's been a world qualifier for now on. They don't have any details on event structure or anything like that. It was just an email saying, X-Wing's coming back, baby. And
Which one?
Nova.
I think they did say world. They did say official now.
I
got an email today.
Literally what I just said. Literally what I just said.
I don't know.
I just said.
I thought you said
I didn't approval know. Marcel moment.
What I was saying is that we don't have details on the format yet.
The format is X-Wing.
This is true.
Is it like Worlds? Or
Show-
is it like Nova's always been, which is 2 different heats of Swiss come together in a big cut?
I know nothing. We don't know nothing. But when we do, we'll let you know. Gold Squadron has been there for the last many years at this point, so wouldn't be surprised if we get asked back. I hope that we're asked back to bring you guys that live action. It's always great to have that on our schedule, and once we can get that confirmed and all, we will. So our goal for today is very simple. Today's a little bit more of a laid back conversation. Kind of imagine you're sitting with us. We've finished playing X-Wing for the day, and we're just kind of talking about what is the future of X-Wing. We just finished the World Championships. Like, we're still coming down from that. There's still plenty to learn, but most of us are, I mean, like always, looking to the future. What is next? And one of the things I'm seeing quite a bit of discussion on is basically kind of 3 different categories of questions that are coming up. Is, will there, and what will they be, any points changes? Will there be any rules changes? So we're talking about like the base rules, and we're talking about the rules reference. And will there be any scenario changes? That's what I want to talk about today. I just kind of want to have a casual conversation talking about, like, what do we think could change? Is there room for change? And if so, what could there be? Here's my first question. I'll open it up with some fire here. If I was a person, let's pretend. Let's play a little role play here. You saw me on Discord, random X-Wing player 12345 posts the following: all right, Worlds is over. I'm super excited to see all the points on every ship change. What is your personal reaction to that statement? And again, we're starting crazy, but I want to flesh it out.
I would immediately say, well, don't get your expectations up so high, because AMG has said in the past that, I think it was after the points update after Gen Con, or the one before it. It's probably the one before it, actually, that gave us the updates to scenarios and the updates to a lot of rules, that they're ideally not going to make any big points changes. They're going to make points tweaks. Right. Small scale stuff that might rein in some stuff or bring up some stuff that really hasn't performed at all. So I would say, calm yourself. It's not going to change it's stuff will change, right? Like, stuff that gets nipped in the butt at the top, that affects the meta greatly. And stuff that gets brought up from the bottom a little bit, like, it might get played a little more, might get some more use. Like, we saw just a simple adjustment of Resistance Y-Wings got a little slap, Resistance A-Wings got a little buff. Like, a little bit right there, and the Resistance faction changed a whole bunch. That's just one faction. So, Empire adapted when the Jingos got adjusted, and all the other 2-point TIE fighters that no longer exist beyond just the generics now. So, I mean, that last one was a little tweak, and things moved around. I think your big stuff you're going to expect is going to come from releases, not wholesale points changes, unless it's like really needed. And I don't know if AMG is going to feel like they need to do it for this one. So, to random person who says, I can't wait for everything to change, calm yourself.
Have a snack and relax. All right. Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. By the way, you got to understand, I'm playing the I'm playing the fool for the sake of conversation. Hopefully
you are.
All right. So, okay, sweeping changes, I agree. Probably not going to be something that we end up seeing. Actually, Ryan, I love that what you just pointed out. So you said that where do you see the biggest change or waves coming in?
Yeah, I think what's going to affect, kind competitive the metas and what people play on a larger scale, it's going to be releases. We saw that with Battle of Yavin, Siege of Coruscant, Hotshots and Aces. AMG released those out for you to buy them. And they reinforced that by making them value purchases in game and by the dollar amount.
That's very true. Very true. Now, let's go more. Let's go to the opposite side of the spectrum here, Will. Nothing's got to change. It's perfect.
That would be impressive for them to get it right. But
Impressive.
the point of the points. I was trying not to say points the second time. The reason why points aren't printed on cards anymore is that they can be malleable. They can change them. Maybe we can take something that nobody's playing and just give it maybe an extra push for the next season, right? And I think that the points will never be perfect, and I hope they're not. I hope they always have an ebb and flow of what could be above the curve and what could be below the curve to keep the game interesting forever.
Yeah, I think the interesting part is important because even if you have perfect balance, you still want to mix it up a bit, and you want to keep a balance, but you want to keep a balance because do you have a perfect balance between factions where all factions are represented? Do you have a perfect balance in that, like ship counts are represented or ship variety is represented? Like there's a lot of different types of balance that you can point at and be like, yeah, the balance is good. You've got 3 ship lists, you've got 8 ship lists, or you've got ships from, you've got a viable list in every faction. But that's one of the reasons why I advocate to 3 or 4, maybe not 4, but maybe 3 point changes a year is more than balancing. It's just keeping things from going stale. It's just, there's never more excitement around X-Wing in the community than when either something new happens, whether it's something that got released or a new points change, and then people are excited, like trying to figure out what like the next
What does it
secret
mean?
sauce is. Yeah, and what trying to find that secret sauce. So even if things seem to be like, oh, things are perfect, don't shuffle it. Like shuffle it anyway. And you might break it, and you might end up with like Nantex all over again. But I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. You know what? Because I think AMG has shown that they will react to something that like pops up like that all of a sudden. So yeah, just shake it up and make it interesting. If something shows up that is like completely busted, I think they've shown the willingness to just be like, to cut something and say like, hey, pause, let's bring this one back down and just do like a one-off change in the middle of like somewhere. So just I would hate for the game to be basically what they're saying is the game is complete, at least complete at the moment, which is not a good state to be in.
So you're advocating almost for like, I'm going to use the word seasons, but in the terms of like, you want to like you want there to be change, like seasons of change, right? You want to in this quote unquote meta, maybe this faction gets a little push or this ship gets a little push. Like how much? So let's go.
Let me restate it in 2 words.
Okay.
That'll kind of like match my personality, but also match what I mean.
Okay.
Organized chaos.
All right.
Like I want there to be like, oh my God, this, like, and get people excited, but I don't want them to like close their eyes and just shoot and be like, oh, defend the Vader 4 points, like
Right.
Just think it out and create create some waves.
I have a great
organized chaos.
example of this kind of like seasons and like what I think me and Marcel are discussing, and it was after Coruscant, one of the first or second points changes in second edition. At the original Coruscant, the OG Coruscant for second edition, they had everybody take a free card. Leia was the free card for Rebels, and everyone was like, actually, that's not really that bad. That's not really a penalty for taking Leia. And then they drop her down to 2 points, i.e., 25% of her total cost from the previous season, from 8 to 2. And you saw Leia in every single list. Now, granted, that only lasted for that 1 points change, and then it went up to like 6 or 7 or whatever it is now. Still below the original 8. But that spark of inspiration for players, now I think we all collectively respect Leia as like, yes, that's a good upgrade, worth the points she has right now. I could see that doing it with, I'm trying to think of an upgrade that's very expensive that nobody's using right now.
Rookcast.
Sure, Rookcast.
Crew.
That's
Rookcast
the
crew.
scum. Take a strain when you take a red action, gives you red target lock. Perfect.
Which I've been playing with. It seems like a lot of fun, but 8 points is a lot to give up.
It is, and you kind of, because it's so
Don't let
expensive, you
Recast be
have.
2 though.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is like only certain combos where that 8 points seems worth it. But if it's reduced down to half of that or something like that, you could start seeing it in more ship combinations, new combos that might not have been points allowed before.
Okay. So here, let me throw another wrench in the machine here. So one other tweak that they could make without changing any of the points would be, what if they said you're allowed to build a 21 point list? Is that enough organized chaos for you, Marcel?
I mean, I would want some other changes to go along with it, but
So okay, I'm gonna mess with your emotions though.
I'm not against that because I'll give you a simple because. I'm not against that because like that 1 point seems like a lot, but it's not. It's really not. I mean, basically, all you're enabling a lot more 6 ship lists, and in some cases 7. I think that the lists that are 8 points would not 8 points. I'm sorry. 6 ship lists and some 7 ship lists, but the lists that are 8 ship lists would not. You would still only really have like a couple 8 ship lists available. So even if they did something like that, but I think something like that makes more sense for like a specific event. Like they're doing a store kit with like a scenario based store kit. That makes sense for something like that, but I think for a tournament play, it would ruffle up, I think, a little bit too many feathers, and too many people would bring out the pitchforks for something like that.
Well, that's fair. So what if we win in the opposite direction? Less points. This season you only get 18 points. Is that more exciting? Is that more difficult? And again, I'm just what I'm doing right now is I'm looking at what are the levers that exist. What if we do this with that lever? What?
So I like the idea of like changing our base cost, because that wrapping our head around. There's a couple people challenging out a 19-point list. Can you win a game with a 19-point list? Because if you're going to win the game, you're probably going to win it by more than 1 point. So that's not always the case. The ability, though, to change stuff outside of list building, my mind immediately went to scenarios. What if the scenarios encouraged a new play styles that we hadn't seen before? whether that would be more ships, a scenario that would value the 3-ship like tanky versions, right? I don't think there's maybe assault be about the best scenario for the 3-ship build, but maybe something that favors them and punishes having too many ships on the board. Where if there's like explosions or extra effects or something like that, to curve your playstyle and be like, well, now maybe bringing that 6-ship is a liability than benefits that it is right now.
I love that actually. I even because I'm even picturing it right now, like an anti-chance engagement. So chance engagement encourages everyone to be in the middle, because if you're not in the middle, you're giving up points, and you get a point for being in the middle. But like Will was saying, what if you put the objective markers on like 4, one in each corner, and you give a range 1.5? Now that we have like an official 1.5 radius, you give like a 1.5 radius from the edges, and say at the end of each turn, if you are within if you are within this range bubble, it's considered like a proton bomb. You're taking a crit. Or maybe in the center, there's whatever, where the scenario markers are actually a debuff versus a buff, or versus gaining points. There, like if you're at range 1 of a objective, you're tractored. Not tractored like they can't reposition you, but you're rolling.
Can I throw out an idea? What if you were fighting in a flammable
landmine
area of space, to where essentially every ship gained a dead man switch? Your 6 ships may not be as powerful, because now they had to really spread out, or else you can cause some chain reactions. But something like that. I actually think, now this is a bit extreme, but I like Greg's idea here of having different scenarios affect your list. He said different points. That would be a little bit weird to pull up in a scenario or in a tournament setting. But even something that's like, if you want to claim this objective, flip all your upgrades face down until the end of the round. Or if you score a hit, or if you use an upgrade, flip it face down for the rest of the round. So adding in different ways how we think about what's valuable during a game of X-Wing versus actually changing its value.
Right. What's your I'm just curious, like what's your opinion like on like different scenario objectives, like negative debuffs, or like what Will was saying? Or
So, in my mindset, the baseline purpose of an objective is to make sure there is something to progress the game state and to progress it towards an end point. While I like the idea of risk reward factor, there's a really fine line of making sure that it is still overall rewarding and moving towards both players finishing the game, and not turning it into something that's something that you actually actively want to avoid. Now, you could say some of that's happening now with people might think of in salvage, where like if you pick it up, you lose some of your action capability. I think salvage like totes that line pretty well, to where it is negatively affecting you a little bit depending on the chassis that it's on it, right? Some, like as a good example, in my worlds list, not too many people that I've seen in the past are willing to pick up a crate with an ADA. Like,
no, that seems like a bad idea.
Well, I found out through a lot of playing and testing that Obi is a great carrier, as long as you as the player have a good path in mind of how to get him there and how to zoom him out. He'll just tank up and hold box the whole time. So, like players that know and how they can correctly flex the risk reward factor of scenarios is a good thing. I'll trust AMG to make the decision on whether or not they want to dive into that a little further. beyond just the risk reward of a ship doing a thing with an action to interact with the scenario, or existing in a certain area to be able to score points as an assault or like chance. I wouldn't want to go too heavy yet in on that. I think the only kind of scenario that stands out to me in some aspect that I like the idea of maybe existing in the future is each team trying to basically take a bomb and drop it in their enemy's deployment zone or somewhere on the enemy side of the map. It's kind of similar to any game mode in a video game where you take a bomb and plant it in your opponent's base type of thing. It's a very simple concept, but it follows the pathing similar to what AMG's already done, which is taking similar concepts that are used across other board games, other video games, tried and true game types that are utilized everywhere. So I'd be interested to see how they would try things that have some more negative side effects and see how it works, but I would do that in more of a like the droid soccer style, where it's like here's a local event that you could do, try this out. It's a little more thematic or casual, and as they learn through people playing and giving them feedback, maybe they could take that and take some of that into maybe a main competitive scenario.
Here's a question. Those scenario packs that we get, they have, the pilots, and as a competitive player, we're really picking them up 9 times out of 10 for the whatever pilots are in that set to add them to our fleet of potential pilots that we bring into a normal competitive game of X-Wing. Are those scenarios a way to test potential competitive ideas? So here's what I mean. Droid soccer, right? I think we've collectively, most people said it's cute, but I wouldn't want to play a game of X-Wing as is. And there are discussions of people talking about what they like or dislike about said scenario. People are willing to play it for funsies, but would you be willing to put it in a tournament? Are those scenario packs a kind of almost a way for AMG to beta test? They get to do something thematic, but they also kind of get to test the waters a little bit?
Sure, yeah, pushing the boundaries of what can be played in an X-Wing match, the droid soccer, they refer to it, because you kick an objective over towards the opponent's side. I think both players, there's like multiple objectives I think you can kick around. I don't think it's just one. But you quickly realize in that scenario that if you list build just right, you can what do they call it? Like pitch, or I forget what they call it in rugby, where you just throw the ball to another player, then they came up. But like passing the ball on soccer, right?
Yeah.
And they come up and they dribble it for a little bit and then kick it into this goal. There's a lot of potential there, like interesting, like having multiple ships interact with an objective, but we'll call it in a competitive environment, people are going to twist that into optimization. Being able to, like, how far can I kick it? How far can, how easily can I score a goal? Things like that. And to me, one of the benefits of that scenario was actually that ships never actually die. They just respawn halfway across the map or whatever, back in your deployment zone, I assume. And that made it so where, like, that, granted, yeah, not a competitive scenario, but actually is like just gaining a way to have someone jump in. Like, you have the demo set up at your local game store and be like, yeah, grab a dial, jump on in. We're kicking the droid to the other side. And, it doesn't take much like tactical strategy or even knowing a lot about the game, right? Just set a dial, we shoot sometimes. So a great jumping off point. But I think that taking that scenario, like a scenario like that, that's so broad and open, and then trying to cram it into a tournament scene really just doesn't work. Now, could they take like different instances of it, like practicing how different ways players could interact with objectives? I do think that is interesting because we see the Beskar. I forget what is the like Hunt for Mando or something. Beskar salvage. Whatever they announced for the Mandalorian themed scenario where you had to pick up the little Beskar that's floating around the map.
Yep.
That's another way to where I think that they might actually be more successful creating scenarios like that because it's so much easier when you're free of the burdens of the competitive tournament scene, where you are just trying to emphasize fun and learning. Unfortunately, I don't think that they're going to be able to transfer a lot of that into the competitive play, other than a list of things not to do.
Us competitive people, man. We're the problem.
Well, yeah. A little bit.
Where the money?
We search for optimization, so that's the. We lean probably a little bit less on theme, a little bit more on, like I said, optimization for success.
Oh, it's true. Huh. Okay. So let's keep diving here. Let's keep digging. Are there any specific points changes that you can think of off the top of your head? You know what? Actually, I know which one we're going to start with. Let's talk about Elusive. Because I feel like that's the one that pops up very often in conversation. Is like, Elusive is trash. Never got me anything. Versus, oh my God, Elusive. It worked every time. Look at all my X-ray evades. Right now it's at 3 points. Is that right?
2 points.
2 points.
So think about it mathematically. A shield upgrade is 8 points. Most people will only use Elusive on Agility 2 and Agility 3 ships, but mathematically it doesn't matter if you have 1 Agility or 7 Agility. You're still only re-rolling 1 dice. It's still only equating to 1 potential result. So that, I think that's probably a part of the math that people, even myself sometimes when you think about like where you got to take Elusive, you're like, well, I'm only going to take Elusive on a 3 Agility ship. Again, you're only re-rolling 1 die, whether it's 3 or 1. The math says that the 2 points is worthwhile if it triggers 1 out of 4 times, because the shield upgrade is 8 points. So that means you have to use it 4 times to equal that 8 points. So as long as you roll, you roll an evade or a focus evade, if you have a focus token, 1 out of 4 times, that kind of, the points is there, which mathematically you should probably roll 2 results out of 4. So it's like half the cost of shield upgrade. So as far as just straight value, and now I'm doing this math in my head, it's completely like wrong 100%, and I know some of the people that do the actual data on it will be like blah, 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 blah. But I mean, that's what it costs, right? It costs 1/4 of a shield, and you have, in order to redo it, you have to do a red maneuver. So there's a lot of variables that go into it. Having said that, I think it's worth 2 points. I don't think it needs to go up. And I know James brought it up in our Discord, in our group channel, and I think it was William. Somebody was on the same boat as me, saying like, no, it's 2 points, even though it's really good and it's like on half of the lists in Worlds. Mm-hmm. It's still not like, I don't think it needs to go up to 3.
Can I compare it to shield upgrade? The 2 most brought upgrades at the World Championship, 133 copies of Elusive and 109 shield upgrades. Now, Those were I think the only triple digits. So by a wide margin there. The difference to me is shield upgrade effective, right? Especially on 3 agility. We don't have variable pricing in anymore. So everybody's paying that 3 agility cost. Elusive though, a lot more exciting. There's a chance for it. There's a dice roll. It's exciting when it works. It's disappointing when it doesn't. When it saves a ship miraculously, a ship that shouldn't have survived, but was able to get it through. That's why I think I wouldn't say better, but I more enjoy Elusive versus a shield upgrade. I like playing a bit of the unknown and like to see that excitement. Because when it works, I mean, it's as good as a shield upgrade, right? Like whether whether you spend your focus on an eyeball result after rerolling a blank, or it goes right into an evade. It's essentially the same, but one is far more riskier than the other. This kind of goes back to the difference between like heroic and elusive, where heroic could trigger more times, but the elusive is more guaranteed on that. Right, on that kind of spectrum here, shield upgrade and heroic on different sides, elusive in the middle there. And I think, my opinion, is that the more exciting a upgrade should be, the more I want to see it in play.
Okay. Interesting.
So my vote is keep it at 2. If that was
All right. Yeah.
I'm totally fine if it stays at 2, but I won't go crazy if it goes to 3. I'll just shrug and be like, well, okay, what happens? I wasn't using it much in the first place, and I think it's fine at 2, but I won't be surprised if it goes to 3.
Yeah, it's without variable pricing, we kind of have to price everything at its highest potential, unfortunately, which probably 2 points. Even as much as I love elusive, if we're pointing it for a 3 agility ship, it should be 3 points.
Marcel, you disagree?
Well, what I said
saw that
earlier.
face.
No, it's just what I said earlier. Realistically, whether you're rolling 1 dice or 3, you're still elusive only rerolls 1 die.
Yeah,
So
but saving 1 damage on your decimator versus 1 damage on your interceptor is a lot bigger deal.
It's still saving just 1 damage.
So think of a reroll on green dice as adding 1 green dice and picking the best results out of how much green dice you would normally roll, right? So 1 reroll on a 2 agility ship is you're rolling 3 and pick the best 2.
True, but
you're gonna only keep the best 2 that you want.
But there's other variables. For example, 10 num. So 10 num who wants to continuously do red maneuvers and continuously reset that elusive charge, and then also have the stress to turn it back. So on 10 num, that elusive charge is like 100% money because you're going to use it more often.
Potentially every turn.
Potentially every turn. So there's more probability of you getting additional shields on 10 num. So I think there's, like I said, there's just too many variables that go into play. With agility is one, but also how the frequency that your ship is stressed and your ship wants to do red maneuvers in order to reset the.
That is
the
true.
charge,
Like it does emphasize red maneuvers, which for I think too long in X-Wing, like red maneuvers are like the last resort, right? Especially with everybody taking stress for bumps, stress for linked actions. Fewer and fewer ships, I think, are doing red maneuvers. So you know what? I'm changing it back down. Say it too. Just to see more people do red maneuvers. K turns. You don't always need a defensive focus. Sometimes you just need to get a shot or get behind somebody to trail them for the following rounds.
Malrus. I would say Malrus probably can use.
So let me say that one more time. Sorry, muted, of course, classic. Is there anything that you believe it needs to be more expensive before we hit something that needs to be cheaper? Go ahead.
Can you define more expensive?
I mean,
Because there's the lever of the actual cost of the ship. There's
Good
the
point.
loadout value given, and slots being taken away.
Good point. Good point. Let's go. Let's just go ship base price of the ship, leaving everything else the same. Anything that you look at and go, that needs to be more expensive. Do you still have that same answer, Marcel?
Yeah, Malrus and probably at least one of the Siege of Coruscant ones, like the one that has a diamond boron missile, for example. I-5 diamond boron missile at 3 points on a 6-hull ship with 2 agility. That's kind of nuts. You know, you have a diamond boron I-5, 2 agility, 6-hull ship.
Support ship.
Support
Who
ship. on top of
passes
that.
evades
Who
out
gives,
to people.
Who gives evade out to people. That is not a 3-point ship. That should be 4. Ryan doesn't like it. He's cringing because he uses it, but that should be 4.
No, I understand why people don't like it. But man, does it hurt to have a Torrent exist once in a competitive list and have it be taken right away?
Yeah.
Especially because when it's an SL card, unfortunately, because I think if that goes to 4 points, it might be dead in the water again.
Tucker's pretty good. Like, nobody uses the Barrage Rocket one, and it is Tucker, right?
That's
With the Barrage
Axe.
Rockets?
That's
Axe.
Axe.
Well, the
He's
Barrage
poking
Rocket
his-
one is pretty good. Nobody uses them because the Diamond
Bring
Boron
it born
guy
for
is
this
just
for
much
the
better.
evade.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, I mean, is that it? Just.
No, there's a bunch, but I mean that would be.
I mean,
maybe we could-
anything that just comes, you're like, kill it.
I think the most of that discussion is on the standard loadout cards because they don't have any of those levers. We can't say, well, just reduce its loadout a little bit or anything like that, or change its upgrade slots because it's so set in stone that it's more of opinion might be a strong word, but your opinion on what it should cost varies. Because I could probably add in to go up the Jag and Wolf. All the other arcs are 4 points. I know we're hating on Republic, but they are noticeable, but they don't feel like 5-point ships. So if they're in an awkward spot there, to where they either have to be below the curve or above it.
Yeah, and the problem is if you make one 4 and the other one 5, then only
You
one
only
is gonna
see
get
Jag.
used. and the
I
other
think
one, yeah.
Wolf should be a 5-point ship probably. Wolf is very.
What is happening?
It's Nora.
right now?
Nora Wexley is 5 points. So
What?
Wexley in an arc
either
six.
bring Nora Wexley down to 4, or Wolf should be.
No, Nora's
to-
6 points in an.
Oh God. Oh yeah. Wolf.
Like the only Arcwood stuff is that you see play a Republic anyway. I don't care about the Rebel ones.
Sure.
If you want to make Nora good, make Nora Y-wing a better cost.
Yeah.
Oh,
Another
that's
one that
true,
could
that's
go
true.
up, and Bartosz is gonna hate me on this one, but I think, so is it Solo? Han Solo?
Han Solo, Battle of Yavin, Han Solo.
Battle of Yavin. There you go. The one, like 7 points, and he gets like a free focus evade every turn plus rerolls on the
We have a
evade,
sample
plus-
size of 1 with that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I
I do
don't-
think
We have a-
Hans.
we have a sample size of 1 because the support system is not there.
Sure.
That's like the support system is not there. But if the A-wings were on par with, or if other stuff were on par with the rest of the factions, you'd see it a lot more. Like that ship. I mean,
Honestly,
that's 13
even
health
with
with
rerolls
focus
and
evade and rerolls.
it's still one agility ship though. Those things melt right now.
They don't melt. It's 13 health, and you have 13 additional points to distribute around your list
Sure.
to keep it, to make it not the main priority. It's coordinating at engagement. It's not even coordinating at activation.
Well, I'm not
It's
saying it's not
reroll.
powerful.
and it's focus, evade, and
But there's
rerolls.
no way
It's
ever gonna
elusive every
compete
turn,
with-
not elusive every attack. I'm sorry. It has elusive
Sure.
every attack. It's
But there's no
Saracen.
way it's going to be competing with the Bistan 8-point Falcons of that faction, though. Bistan Trick Shot Han
I
looks a
don't
lot
know.
different at 8 points.
There's look, sample size of 1 success. I'd rather let SL Han, Boy Han, stay as he is for a bit. Let it ride out to the next points adjustment, and we'll see that.
Yeah, let's wait for some new Rebel pilots maybe that would affect that. Kyo's been very successful.
She has. Or they have, yeah.
Which I guess if we're moving off of the standard loadouts, talk about the latest expansion.
Hot shots and aces, baby.
Hot shots and aces. Is there a faction that didn't lean on hot shots and aces too? I know Dirge showing up in both factions he can take. We have
Republican.
Sicko. What were the
Republic
other
was all
Republic?
Siege of Coruscant, or that's it. Like
What were
all
the
everything else
other-
was released before.
I don't
was-
even know the other hot shots and aces. Oh, the Naboo Starfighter. The
Resistance Nefo leaned heavily on hot shots, I think.
Yeah, Zay coming in as the only 4-point T-70. Is there any of those pilots that you would like to see go up? I mean,
So
Dirge,
I'm gonna
not
make
with
a
its
general-
current loadout, but
I'm gonna make a
Sorry, go
general wide statement across all of it right now. I don't think any pilot needs to go up in its squad point cost because there are levers to pull in its loadout or cannon that I think is more apt than its squad cost. Like the only squad cost that I think is merited is Defender Vader and keeping all his current stuff. But even then, I could see I would rather see him exist at 9 and then pull some of his stuff back that he already has. I really don't think there's. I think the SLs are the only ships that yes, you can really only push and pull them through the point costs. And looking back on those, I don't really see anything egregious. I mean, I guess if you wanted to take like Click or Kickback, make one of them 4, just so you could not see them all the time. Sure, but I don't think they get played at that point, which is fine. They can just sit on the sidelines for a while. A lot of people have been talking about Mauler, putting SL Mauler up to 4. And man, I do not agree of that combo being 8 points.
You see, but I do not agree with that combo being 7 points, and that's the whole thing. And I think that's one of the struggles you get with cutting a decimal point on the loadout of ships, because we were talking about like Jag and Wolf. It's like 4, but then 5 they're not played. But if they were 3.5, then you can consider it. And unfortunately, you know, that's one of the levers. The decimal point is one of the levers that got taken away. That could have kind of resolved this. Like they're in a weird spot where, you know, 3 points is too low, 4 points is too high. So you have to kind of play around with the loadout. But then if it's a standard loadout, you can't play around with the loadout anymore. So that adds a bit of a challenge where
I'd like to give a counter argument. And this is, I am questioning whether or not this argument makes any sense. Tell me if it does or not. So I understand the idea of, you know, a 200-point scale has more granularity, right? That's the word that we throw around. But as you start to increase the number of pilots on a ship, like, I'm trying to see how I know what I'm trying to get to. If there was only 3 pilots for each ship, would more granularity matter less? Like, does the presence of having so many pilots on one ship, would make nearly any scale like require eventually more granularity.
I think I.
You kind of see where I'm trying to go with here?
We'll just theorycraft for a second, then we can dive into the question. But just making sure. So, like, as if there's only 3 pilots for each chassis, you can make one the cost of the generics, one maybe less than the cost of the generics, and then one that would be more than everything, the most expensive pilot, but he would have a ridiculous loadout.
Right.
To fill like all of us slots or anything. So you're asking, in that situation, do we need as much granularity because we are comparing less ships amongst each other?
Right.
So like in the example of like the TIE FO, we have so many, I think all but one of the TIE FO pilots cost just 3 points. So it's hard to, you have to directly compare them. You have to compare Longshot with DT. You have to compare Gaelic versus Malorus because they're so identical in their points and slots and everything. So thinking that out loud, it does make sense to me that the more pilots requires more granularity because we need to put them in, maybe not need, but we would like to put them in an order, tier rank them, if you will, of like, these are the best, Scorchin, Malorus, S tier, Muse, Revis, dumpster tier. It's easier for our brain to like organize that information.
Right.
And I would add to that the in that scenario that you talked about, right? Like the TIE FOs, you've got Midnight, and then you've got DT, Scorch, Malorus, and then probably like Gaelic and a couple of the other ones in the middle, and then you got the garbage tier ones. You can, in the current setup, you can play around to make them equivalent using loadout values and different things to put on them. But once you start inserting standard loadouts to some of those pilots, like the X-Wings, which is probably a better one to talk about because the X-Wings there's a ton of X-Wings, but there's also standard loadout X-Wings, and then you've got standard loadout X-Wings that have both a build yourself plus a standard loadout version. That granularity makes more sense because you can't play around with the loadout anymore. You can't say, well, Luke is a little bit too good, so let's drop a little bit of loadout to make him equivalent to Wedge, and give Wedge, like a little additional loadout because, Luke is a better pilot.
It was Rob, actually. I'm adding more fuel to your fire here. Rob, actually, in our chat, was asking about comparing the different wedges. We have 4 wedges now. The 2 standard loadouts. We got a customizable X-Wing and a customizable A-Wing. How are we going to compare 2 customizable cards versus a single pilot now as well? How is that?
May as well just shove the A-Wing one out of that conversation because that's a completely different chassis.
Yeah, it's a different ship.
It's a whole point cheaper though.
But it's a different ship.
It's a different ship. That's not a real comparison.
That's fair.
Well, yeah, sure. You have 2 SL wedges. You have 1 non-SL wedge. I mean, they all have different abilities, which matters. They all have different upgrades they can take or have or take. So we'll see. Well, now we're getting some stuff where there's 3 whole versions of one available.
How would you start to even compare them, though? Can they be the same price, or do you have to make the customizable version more expensive?
No, not all the time.
Yeah, and that's where I'm getting. Like, if you have a lot of pilots, again, in the ones that don't have a lot of pilots, or let's use the TIE BA as an example. Like the TIE BA, you got Ember, you got Hollow, you've got Von Rig. It's pretty easy to say, this is the best, this is the mid range, and this is the not as good one. So you can do
Right.
points 4, 5, 6. Like that's pretty straightforward. But when you get to the X-wings and you've got 15 pilots for the same ship, it's hard to put those 15 pilots in a range between 4 and 6. You're not going to pay 7 for an X-wing. You're not going to pay 3 for an X-wing. So you're playing within that 4 to 6 range pilot cost, and you've got to fit 15 pilots into that 4, 5, 6 range. That naturally is going to say there is a best 4-pointer, there is a best 5-pointer, and there is a best 6-pointer. So you've essentially narrowed it down to like this is my best 4, this is my best 5, this is my best 6. When you add additional granularity, then that's when you start getting into like, well, now you're in a spectrum. You're like a 4-point, a 4.2, a 4.6, a 4.9, and you can get a little bit. You can add more viability to other ships. Now that adds more complexity to the game, and we're talking from an ultra competitive min-max type of scenario, which is not very new player friendly. Like a new player, it makes it very difficult for a new player, like to say like, hey, come here, you're just standing loadout, there's 4 points and you get 5 of these and now you've got your 20 points. Like that's super easy to get a new player in. So you add more granularity. I understand that it makes it a little bit more, not a little bit, it makes it a lot more difficult for players who are either newer or players who aren't min-maxing everything to try to like get the last bit of edge. It just makes it more complex. So it's I don't know. I'm talking circles, but I understand where Ryan's point is a little bit, but like I was saying, like more granularity on a chassis that has TIE Interceptor is another one, and a chassis that has 15 pilots makes it very difficult to make every pilot or many pilots worthwhile.
So let me throw back the granularity in the opposite direction. So this was actually a conversation in GSP General earlier today, and I think Cam Murray put it really nicely of the other end, like if you go more granular with let's make it 40 points, let's make it 60 points, whatever, right? And we start adding more levels of things. One problem with that is you may have more variety of pilot points, but that variety isn't necessarily a guarantee that they see more play. In some cases, they might even see less play because of how things need to add up to your full number. We don't have bids anymore, right? So your value of putting things together and adding to the total, and then on top of that, there's just the simple fact that like just because it feels like it's not getting played now, it's costed not well currently. Now, whether it's squad cost, whether it's loadouts available, whether it's slots available, there's a lot more push and pull levers we can look at before we consider like even making our points more available for a whole squad to make it more granular. I mean, we've seen more granularity happen in X-Wing in the past, right? We saw it go from 100 to 200. We still saw stuff that was bad, stuff that was good, stuff that never saw play, and stuff that always saw play. It didn't matter. It's always going to happen. Now, yes, there's definitely a level of certain chassis getting a lot of pilots, like your TIE fighters, your TIE interceptors, your X-wings, your Y-wings, your chassis that are very iconic to Star Wars that are going to see a lot of pilots. And some of those pilots haven't seen play. Will they see play in the future? Because AMG might do what I think what Will mentioned earlier in the cast, which was, hey, what if we just give this one a little bit of an extra push or freebie this season, right? And that one suddenly out of nowhere, bam, sees more play because AMG says, all right, we're going to make all the Cavern Angels X-Wings like better this season. People are going to want to play. They're going to want to play with Saw U-Wing, and we're going to try and like get more of the Saw Renegades together to be competitive next swing, whatever, on a theme level, for instance. Or they're like, hey, we want like the 181st interceptors, all the pilots in there to be really good this season or whatever, right? So they could push and pull those at times that they want to. I mean, as we saw with Garvin and Jack, they never saw playing the custom version. They got SL versions with 1 point less. So people started bringing them more. Yes, that was a direct different cost, and you got your standard loadout ones. But I mean, you could put the custom Garvin and Jack at 4 as well right now, and I could see an argument for custom or standard at this point, depending on the loadout available. So I think I see granularity get thrown out a lot as a quote solution. I think this iteration of the game right now has a lot more to go through and try and have AMG push and pull with the levers already available before we just decide to give squad building quote more space, which is what people think will solve some of the problems of things being really good at this price, but maybe not playable at this price. That's always existed.
Preach it.
All right, I'm going to give you one more. Too cheap should go up 1 point.
All right.
Magpulse. Oh, William hates it.
I was questioning that. I was questioning it. Again, I think
I would take a concussion
Magpulse.
missile every day, twice on Sunday, if that was the same.
Twice on Sunday.
Well, if they cost the same,
Concussion's 5 right now. Magpulse go to 5. Are you kidding me?
Magpulse is so good. I saw the replay today. Bart, yeah, like I've been watching like the uploads that you guys have been posting.
Yeah.
And it was like I think it was Bartos against somebody else. And that in the range 1 Tycho shot on Lulo shooting back and being like, not only are you not going to shoot me with 4 dice, you're going to shoot me with 3 dice and no focus. That's just, that's so good.
it was very good.
It is so good.
I can't. When we're talking about points, I can't bring it up enough. Magpulses would be one of the upgrades that would be helpful through variable pricing. 5 points if you're initiative 5 and 6. 4 points on everybody else seems very reasonable to me because you're getting that value when you're shooting earlier. And I won
Yeah, that
Magpulse
deplete
means
is so
nothing.
good.
Maybe their shields are down, I guess, but like not as powerful. Though I understand. The ship has sailed for variable pricing.
Yeah,
so
I5 or I6 Magpulse is just.
it's very good. That's where you get the most value out of it. So if it's all across the same points, why put it on anything else?
It's very true. It's good.
I think Magpulse is overrated. I'm done. I said it.
Oh, we just called. You brought Magpulse. He just got called out.
Wait. Was there a Magpulse?
I shot so many Magpulses that were so good at Worlds.
Was there a Magpulse in the World Championship one?
Yes, you can have a
that
winning
works.
list have some choices be different than others and still win because the player is good at a plan and correctly utilize the spots correctly. Doesn't mean that is the best choice.
Oh, Magpulse is the only choice at I5 and 6.
All right, you have fun doing 1 crit.
It's a defensive munition, though. It's
Crit
not
jam
offensive.
deplete. Crit jam deplete. Don't get it twisted.
Well, it's a tool. It's a tool in the toolkit, and maybe it's the loadout. Maybe it's the situation that makes one better than the other. Just it's all right.
I like because Will, you had your Magpulse on Hollow in your list, right?
Correct.
I did the same thing because there was only a missile slot left after Proud Tradition Pattern Analyzer.
Yeah,
like,
to be fair, it was
utility-
barely a choice.
Utility-wise, I'll take it in case I do want to actually Magpulse something instead of shoot my regular gun for situational purposes. But I'm not bringing it as my main damage dealing on Malcolm.
I shot 2 Magpulses at Worlds at range 1, even. Because
Situationally makes sense, sure.
like what Marcel said, I would I'm about to take a range 1 with a focus shot. No, thank you. How would you make that range 2 without a token? Get out of here. But I mean that's a bigger question about like debuff. Are debuffs better than buffs right now? That might be a question for another podcast.
Buffs always do
By the way,
feel good when you do.
I just want to point out that one of the things I like about this particular group, and when James is included as James as well, is the amount of variety of opinions that we get. I love that sometimes I agree with Ryan, sometimes we're at completely opposite spectrums, and same thing between Ryan and William, or between me and William.
Yeah, normally if
like,
me, you, and Ryan are all agree that a list is good, something's wrong.
sounds bad, yeah. Like they need to. We're at Nantex level, but just wanted to point that out, that I really appreciate that I feel like we have some good discussion here, and with completely different opinions. Sometimes similar opinions, but it's a good space to discuss. So I appreciate it for you guys, with you guys.
Oh, of course. We all make ourselves better actually by talking about different angles of the game, right?
That's true. I mean, being able to have, we all have our blind spots, right? Like, but at the same time, if you don't go forward with self-conviction, it's hard to make decisions, right? You have to kind of like, this is, I believe X within this space, and you go for it, and you go forward until you're found wrong. And if you don't have people questioning you, you might not have that opportunity to find out that you're making X mistake, or maybe something else could be optimized, so on and so forth.
Side note, this is why a lot of people generally recommend, if you're trying to get better at X-Wing, don't do it alone. Get with other people that you know that don't always have the same like mind as you do. You're not supposed to have all the same exact opinions. You can come to the same conclusions eventually. You don't have to start with the same opinions. Form a little team. Doesn't have to be local. Go across. Use the internet. And talk. Play games. Test things out. Get together. Squad is very helpful.
Agreed. All right. So we talked a little bit about pilots changing costs, just their overall costs. Is there anybody who has an egregious loadout that needs to be changed? Whether we got some. Let me in. All right, what you got, Ryan?
Either yeet the crew slot off of Kane and Hawk, or put it down to a spot where you can't get another force crew.
Fair.
Like, none at all. Not even the child. I don't care. Even though I think the child would oddly, like, if you put it down to a cost where you can only take the child and you can't take even just like Ahsoka, that means you can't take patience. So actually putting the child on Kanan is a weird dynamic of like, yeah, you might lose 3 red dice basically on the way in, but then you just don't shoot Kanan. He never gets the force back. So I don't know. Either way, Kanan, do something with the crew. Loadout down, crew slot gone, whatever.
Loadout 9. That's all he needs. Give him 9. He's still good.
Ahsoka crew. Stop it.
No, but Ahsoka does not reload.
I know, Maul's got that extra ability. That's a big deal.
Yeah. The reload is what really starts stacking.
How would
For me, I would say
in slot combination that isn't just the best force point combination.
Yeah, but you can't have that ship without a crew. I mean, that's basically what the ship is, a crew carrier.
But he's the lost Padawan, though. He wouldn't be hanging out with people. He's going to be reclusive.
Yeah, you can't be hanging out with another Padawan and consider yourself a lost Padawan.
Yeah, I'm so lost, bro.
Oh, another Padawan, not a lost one.
So I've got 2. I've got one is I've been advocating, I think, for like a month and a half now, like Defender Vader. I love where he's at. Even bring him down a point, but just give him 0 loadout. Just base model, no loadout. That's your standard loadout is 0. So
Does
just
any
make them
ship
a
have
standard
zero
loadout.
loadout besides the generic TIE fighters right now?
Not that I
There's
know.
no limited pilot that has 0 loadout.
I think he should be the first and bring him
I think
down from 9
AMG's
to
moved
8.
away from that though as a mindset. Like they haven't done zero. I think loadouts are fun.
They want an AN upgrade for
Yeah,
you.
Yeah, but
and
Defender
I
Vader
don't mind that. So
Yeah,
Defender
but-
Vader,
he's a special cookie. He's a unique character. He is.
I would advocate for a cannon slot, so at least he can take the elite.
Sure. Give him a cannon slot and 4
Missile slot,
points,
sure.
so he can get a heavy laser or something like that. The other loadout change that I would advocate for is the Resistance Y-wings need some loadout love. I think they're kind of hurting a little bit. So
I think Will's been on the charge of make wartime and the other one just different chassis altogether.
Yeah, I think so. I'm trying to think of outside of like some extended ships like Star Wings. They have 2 different configurations. Wartime and intuitive interface should just be 2 different cards. That way they can stop trying to guesstimate how much wartime loadout should cost. How does that affect your overall loadout? And then I think Defenders in general, I think as well, I think the game would benefit from making the elite a separate pilot card that doesn't have full throttle, and then either point them appropriately or just ban the full throttle versions.
I mean, it worked really well with the Delta.
The Jedi?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it
because how are you
worked
going to
really well.
price or how are you going to price 7B? It wouldn't.
I mean, it's a completely different ship. It's more attack, less. I mean,
Now, I want to extend that. Now, this is where it starts getting crazy. That I want to start chopping up vultures as well. If you have independent or not, or if you have struts or not, I think could be. That's messy though. I don't expect them to do that, but I do think that there should be. Vultures are bad. I understand this. But you shouldn't be able to take independent and struts on a 2-point chassis. I don't care what it is. But I agree that they're not bad. Or they're bad right now, so probably no changes needed. But I do think that like that, the 7 and 7B split, I think caught almost everybody by surprise. Like, did not even think about that. That was an option to change.
I mean, because we lived in a completely different world. Like it was like I said, it wasn't even an option.
No, now I think it definitely could be to make these hard choices. Sorry, Marcel. Was there anything else you said? Defender Vader and Y-wings.
Excuse me. There was a few, but I think those are some of like the 2 that stick out the most to me. Is because you know Y-wings and the Resistance went from they're what made the Resistance good to they're nowhere to be found, and that's a bit. You know, they got the Jump Master treatment in 1. When the Jump Master took like 5 nerfs in order to get to where they were, they did that to the Y-wings in like 1 point change. It was just like too much.
Yeah, one of those Y wings probably should have needed to stay at 3 points.
Yeah. I think for me, I think it would just be taking the talent slot off of defenders. They don't need juke. They can maybe other solutions, but I don't really want to ban juke, but like it seems like it's getting to that point to where it's only played on free evading ships.
It's a real interesting way to like have the defenders still exist as they are with full throttle, but just not allow them to ever take juke. That's a really interesting way around not completely errating getting rid of the full throttle.
Yeah, we don't have to figure out what point juke cost on them. We don't have to figure out how much they should cost with juke.
Would you do the same to N1s? Or would you let N1 still do it because they're
They could use the help. So juke away, my friends. Give
Fair.
them more loadout, honestly.
so if all defenders lost their talent slot, do you think they could all go down 1 squad point each?
Ooh, I don't know about facing
Very
3
broad
of them.
stroke statement, but
Sure, I would be acceptable. I would be more lenient on a 6-point elite defender than ever a 6-point evading full throttle defender.
sure, because they do just end up being a slog of a ship to kill, and that just for some games that's just not fun. Whether it's good or not, it just might not be fun.
Yeah, also 3 defenders, 3 full throttle defenders, and an academy out there taking objectives. Not a list I want to fight.
I like that, Will.
I think that the levers for slots in most instances could be better utilized. We saw it on Boba. They took out Boba's crew slot for a while. It's back now because he's a ridiculous ship, as he should be. He's 9 points, so go to town, Boba. But it's just like when the wealth of upgrade cards. I was trying to count the upgrade cards we have in X-Wing right now, and it's hitting like 200 or something like that. I think it's 300 with like named crew added in for upgrades. But that's every time you give someone a loadout and it's like some loadout points, and you give them a slot, you have to literally look at every single upgrade that could be fit into that slot for it to be balanced. And I think that, yeah, just like ripping slots off of ships is the appropriate way to go. We could have saw it with Kraken as well. Didn't want to play Kraken, or didn't want Kraken to be cheap because he could double coordinate with cluster missiles. But now he's got a torpedo, and that problem has been alleviated, and now he can fly as a regular single bonus action ship. I'm trying to think of, is there other examples of like one minor slot change recently that had affected the whole ship? I mean, let's just talk about adding cannons to attack dice ships. Ain't no way Static is ever going to compete with DT or Scorch.
Oh, not at all.
Cannon. With a cannon, though, now he's got some extra utility. He's rolling similar attack dice. Now he's even in the same conversation as the other two.
I don't think there's many slot changes in the past that have occurred that have had that large impact.
Does Han still get... We can't do Handbrake Han anymore, can we? They never gave him his illicit slot back.
No, he's got his illicit. I just think inertial dampers got banned.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That
there
just
it
got
is.
straight banned. That's true.
Look, we can bring the whole slot back if we just get rid of this one upgrade that should never exist.
Should have never existed in the first place. And maybe that's kind of to segue into that. My question to you guys is, what's going on the ban list? We haven't seen the restricted list used at all.
Ooh.
Ooh,
One card, Marcel.
one card? Can I do 2?
Please,
Ryan, go
please.
first.
This does not have anything to do with the quality of the card and its effect in the competitive meta right now. This is purely on the basis of game state and not slowing down the game.
Okay.
Electro Chaff and Mando Commandos. I hate to say it, but those two, because of how they're placed on the board. Like, you talk to anyone.
Can I throw Discord missiles into that then?
Potentially, yes. But I will say specifically because it deals with. So a chaff cloud, its shape is very long, it's very spiny, right? And if you talk to anyone who's played, now granted we're seeing a lot less of it now, but if it ever does see more competitive play, it just slows down games to put that thing out, right? Especially if you're about to throw it out and put it under anywhere from 3 to 4 ships, like you lose like 5 whole minutes in a game just to do that. And then, so if you compare it to launching a Discord missile, right? at least with a Discord missile, if it's gonna go under a ship, that means you don't need to put it under it. You attach it to the front or back. Like once you see where the template goes, it's not something that has to stay there, right? So that's why I think,
and
well,
certainly
I could,
not like Commandos that moves around underneath of large
yeah,
vessels.
God,
Right.
because commandos can be underneath and go through ships, and ships can land on top of them. Like, if those end up being more competitive, those things are a nightmare to move around and then make sure you don't nudge them a little bit, because they do have arcs that matter because they can shoot. Like, I love the fact that Mandos are more in this game, but man, I don't know if this application is a good idea to stay around. I think Mando Commandos and Chaff Clouds are both things in the game that, if and when they exist in a game, and if they're more widespread used, is going to slow down games. We saw it when Chaff was really, really good in the previous meta, and we had people that I know went to Nova Open, where Crispy won with his list, and with the FO list, which was 2 FO bombers, Wilo, Malrus, and Scorch, where both FO bombers had Chaff Clouds. Multiple people brought that list, and some people had mirror matches, and that was like, both players admitted that was a nightmare. It was just not fun because of how many Chaff Clouds they were putting out against each other, some overlapping each other. Now, granted, that's the extreme end of the spectrum, but if they ever become competitive again, that's what could happen. That just slows down too many games, and it's just not a fun X-Wing experience when you want to move ships around the board and not put templates around that are a nightmare to try and get down in certain spots and move around with the commandos.
That's interesting. Now, there could be some like rules changes to better accommodate that, but I doubt like Mando's blocking ships is going to be the solution, or like you can never overlap a Mando or something.
Now, if you're purely a TTS player, you got no problem with it.
Right.
It's all automated. But, man, real life play with these, no bueno.
So
Interesting. I hadn't considered that.
I'm going to go the opposite direction. I'm going to go with Unban.
Oh. Okay.
So, couple Unban. One of them is one of my favorite cards of all time that I felt got banned unceremoniously and undeservedly, being Intimidation. Oh God. If you don't like it, just price it a little higher. But I love me some Intimidation. It gives blocking an additional meaning, and it adds a completely different element to the game, which is a different element to the game that is completely revolved around positioning and blocking and predicting your opponent's moves at lower initiative. So that's one that I would 100% unban. I would love to see that card back. I think I don't even know why it got banned, but would love to see that back.
I believe it works at range 0 is why.
Perfect.
It works when you...
And yeah, I want blocking to make more of an impact than it currently does. If your list is built around like defense versus offense, and the other part around.
Can I ask what you'd price it at?
Huh?
Can I ask what you'd price Intimidation at?
I would probably price it between 3 and 4 right now. Maybe 4. Because it used to be 3. It used to be 3.
Can I pip it? Can I put it on the restricted list to make it only one copy?
If you want, yeah. Like you can pip it and make it like a unique only card, but I just liked it takes a ship that has a purpose and it gives it a secondary purpose, and it just adds a completely different play style to an existing list.
Does
Your name is Meryl, and you're doubling down, actually tripling down.
so?
Well, just take Merle's EPT away.
Yeah, he drops the talent.
No, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying on the other end of the spectrum, instead of like giving something else to do, you can be doubling down on like your Arvels, your Oikins, your Merrills, etc.
But those ships aren't overly like they're not overpowered. You're not like taking them to a different level.
Here's a thought I have with that though, is if you bring back intimidation, I feel like you're skewing the bumping kind of the idea behind how they changed range 0 interactions. Maybe not necessarily intimidation needs to come back, but potentially maybe another card that does something similar but in a different way. Because what I don't like about intimidation with our current system is, you know, when you run into somebody, it should be a choice. I know most people just say, I'll take the focus stress, whatever. But if it becomes, yeah, I'll take the focus stress and your -1 agility, fine. Like I just feel like it's you're making that choice less difficult. Maybe it's something that when you have a collision at range 0, you have a charge and you can spend it once per game or something like that to give a strain or something like that. But I don't know if consistently being able to slam a ship into another one and take away agility
even
is a good
if you
idea.
make intimidation strain instead of something else. Like I just missed the again. I used to, and I know that's completely me. Like I'm not ignorant to the fact that I played Bump Masters and I did, you know, that I constantly played I know where you're gonna be, I know what you want to do, so I'm just gonna like make your life miserable type of game. And I get it. I get it. It's completely like around me, but that's what we're talking about. Like, what would I like to see? That's something that I would like to see. That doesn't mean everyone has to agree, but I would love to see intimidation back. And then another one that comes to unbanning that I would love to see is I don't anticipate them reprinting or doing the whole thing to redo like some of the ships that are no longer available and that are extended, like the tugboat, for example. But there are a lot of those first edition ships still available on Amazon, still available on certain like retail stores and local, some game stores like Pastimes and stuff like that, and they have a complete shelf of first edition ships. I would love to see an unbanning of those ships, not by virtue of them reprinting the models, but them printing expansion packs or card packs that basically replaced all of the, let's use the tugboats for example. Okay, you don't necessarily have to redo all the tugboat pilots and abilities exactly the way they used to be, but just print a tugboat expansion pack that you can buy along with a first edition tugboat, and it allows you to buy
Sounds
the
like what
model.
you're describing is the conversion kit.
Like a conversion kit, yeah, exactly. But a ship-specific conversion kit to where you can buy, and you can put your thumb down all you want. But that's something that I would love to see, and
so
it would help. Like I just miss some of those old ships, and I want to be able to play some of those old ships. And I'm sure a lot of the stores that have these ships in stock would love to be able to move some of that old inventory that is never going to go anywhere.
Fair.
Interesting. Joan, you got a card you want to see on the ban list? What card's frustrated you lately?
It's tough. I'm thinking more about what I've seen on stream, and to be completely honest, like there's been a good amount of diversity from what we've seen. The thing that we've seen the most as of late is Darth Vader and 2 TIE fighters, but like the only Iden ? But does Iden make the argument for a long time since Iden's released for people who are pro Iden is Iden makes TIE fighters viable. But do we have enough like TIE fighters that can kind of carry on their own that we can say either the price is okay to go higher on Iden, or we can say bye-bye to her in the TIE fighter and put her on the ban list?
I think between
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, I'm in
between
that.
Mauler, Backstabber, maybe some more good TIE fighters coming in Endor, Moff Gideon getting some good use, and even just some of the generics that have been used as filler in the past. And just because Iden's actually a rules nightmare and just can constantly mess with stuff. Like, technically, the way Iden works right now is not how it should work, but it has to work that way because that's how it's always intended it to work. The wording's bad. The way it exists right now needs to go. Just get it out.
I hadn't thought about just straight banning her because she's a rules nightmare, and we have seen people fly other 3-point TIE fighters, but if you're going to choose a single 3-point TIE fighter, I feel like Iden's like a big step above the other ones.
Big time.
So that's
I
interesting.
think Moff Gideon's got a real argument, though, in some of those cases.
Sure. I mean, I've seen that Moff Gideon just with the Darth Vader of your choice. Really disappointing.
How many ships do you know would be okay not having any defensive mods against a Darth Vader attack?
Not very many. Ghosts? Death Vaders? Oh, no, the reinforce of the
How many
Death Vader.
crits would you be willing to take?
No! Mine are just real simple. It's composure for the same thing, like rules. I'm sick of the rules around composure, about why you're taking it. It's training wheels, or abused, and either one, not great for the game. Then the other one, I actually have two. I broke my own rule because everybody else is taking two. Shield upgrade. Big yawn city for that only is that it's boring. It's such a boring upgrade. It is penalizing people for their loadouts as well, that they won't get to 8 loadout in fear that you would just take a shield upgrade. So yeah, though you got all that talk about intimidation, Dion. I want to hit rules. Your next thing here, rules, real fast because I got
we gotta get going.
My brain. Last thing, well, not for me. You guys can obviously talk about rules, but to make mine quick, I saw something inspirational on Facebook that now has changed my opinion.
Okay.
I like this idea a lot. So, bump focus, okay? Your opponent gets to choose which red token you take. Yeah.
Oh.
Strain, deplete, ion.
Non-block red token, I would assume.
Yeah.
Non-lock red token, obviously.
you go.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, we can't just lock you for no reason because you bumped into me.
Yeah.
I have Tauber.
I don't know. Ion is kind of like, one of these.
Ion
things
would be
not like
very
the other.
powerful. That would.
Yeah,
Would you?
Ion maybe strain.
I think that's probably too much.
Yeah, Ion is
Okay.
rough, but I can understand strain, deplete, stress, but Ion is on a different level.
That is kind of
I mean,
similar
just
to like what you're
ask
saying about
Marcel
intimidation.
with his jump masters with ion projector. What if you just told everything that bumped into you is now ion? If they want to have,
They don't have to take the focus.
Well, they
don't
were
have- They
Ion,
don't have to.
kind of.
But it could be something like, it's what made me think about your intimidation. Just be like, well, you bump into me, it's focus and strain. Like you're willing to drop your defense to try to bolster your offense. And same thing, someone's like, oh, well, no one's shooting me. I'll take the focus for offense. We're like, well, you, sir, get the deplete. Do not shoot me as well as you could have.
I actually like that a lot. Without the Ion, I think the ION is too.
We'll
Nutano
play
here
test
in
the ION
chat-
for.
Nutano in the chat had an interesting one. What if you just put on a die roll? Crits and ion focuses strain,
Ooh.
blank is a deplete, hits a stress.
Would you risk a 1/8 ion? Maybe not a small base.
On a big ship, yeah.
Big ship all day, sure. Deplete.
No, but I mean, you can make it like ion as in ion.
Ionized.
Ionized, yeah.
Not ion, but ionized.
Oh, so for that turn, you're considered ion. I don't know what that would do though. In that turn, if you're already ionized, you've already taken the focus only.
No, but
Oh,
you'd
you're already
be
ionized.
ionized
But
the
something.
following turn.
The following turn, you're ionized.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like
Yeah.
for that turn, you're considered ionized and have already solved it. So that maybe just
No, you get the focus, and after you get the focus, then you get a token.
Right. Interesting. Anyways, that's my rules thing. That was inspirational to me that we're locked into. I don't think focus is the right answer either, but limited options. But what we do have options are red tokens. What about you guys?
Or you can say the other way, whereas you bump and you take a stress for an opportunity for a positive token, where hit crits is your focus, a focus is an evade, and a blank is nothing. So you take a stress for nothing.
That'd be pretty fine.
I think more people are willing to roll the dice on the bad token than the good token. They want to guarantee what good token.
Guaranteed good, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of okay in the camp with this, that for range 0 attacks, I think either A, crits should count as blanks, as like when you roll, can't crit anyone at range 0. And you effectively added another blank to that potential result. So now you're only doing damage out of a 3 out of 8. Or if that's too much and AMG still wants damage to go through as it is now, I would just say crits count as hits, just like any bomb would when it like bomblet generator, where a crit would count as damage. So hits and crits count as those regular damages. I think. I just think overall, one agility ships, they're just super punished right now for existing on the board. Just
You're
ones.
here. You sucks to suck.
Yeah, pretty much. And I think even the range 0 stuff really hurts them pretty hard. Because, red dice are already more favored than green anyway. And if you already have 2 or 3 more reds than the green's available, being the 1, you're still gonna take some damage. Which, while okay, I'm okay moving the game state forward and doing damage and hurting stuff. The amount of damage those current 1 agility stuff does back is not as much as they have incoming most of the time. So I think rain would help alleviate. It probably won't solve any of the 1 agility ships by any means in their current state, but I think what can help and stop from potential, probably a lot of feels bad crazy variants is the crits that could occur at range 0. So I think either eliminate the crit result to be a blank, maybe reduce by 1 dice, one die, basically potential result to do less damage, or just change the crit to being counting as a hit at range 0 attack. So you're not doing devastating damage thematically to a ship at range 0 when you barely are flying by them and getting a shot into them.
It's good stuff, my friends. Is there anything else? Anything else that just comes to mind where it's like, I would like to see a tweak? This has been exactly what I wanted. It's kind of like a chill, just kind of a discussion. How would we maybe see things getting bumped here? It's the one thing I want to stress, as you guys are thinking, if there's anything else, is I came out of the World Championship satisfied, right? We saw every faction have a chance. Most factions have a chance at it. Some unexpected factions making it into the top cut, talking about Rebels. Some expected factions making it into the cut. We're talking about First Order. We're talking about Empire. and we had a pretty big diversity of lists, and I think time will tell how everything shakes out. And I think that is probably my biggest point, is that I came out of Worlds satisfied with the state of the X-Wing meta. And really, I think it almost comes down more to kind of what Marcel says, is we enjoy the drama of shakeups, right? We do enjoy that within bounds. And especially coming out of the last year and a half, 2 years of major changes happening, it might be weird to have just very minuscule changes happening from now on, and it might be the new norm. With going back to what Ryan said, our major changes most likely end up just being when new stuff gets in, and we have to compare its value to everything else, and seeing how playable it is.
And I have one more thing about like Afterworlds commentary and question. Not just question to you guys, but question to like the people listening. Is anecdotally, just my own experience, is that after Worlds and after a high-profile official live event, competitive event, interest in the people that I speak to, like in the communities that I'm involved in, both locally and then, on social media internationally, have ramped up. Like, people are interested in playing the game again. They're like, that fear of, I'm not going to say fear of missing out, because that's future, but the regret of having missed out. So it's not the fear of missing out, but the regret of having missed out. Like, man, that was such a great event. I wish I would have been there. And I want to be there for the next one. Like, I'm not going to miss the next one. Is real. In, again, locally, in people that play here, in Chicago, and then internationally through, the different communities that I talk to. And they're springing up again. But again, that's anecdotally, and that's me search. That's just me and the people that I personally communicate with. So I'm just wondering if that's kind of like the thing that's happening to you guys and your communities and the people that you guys, in Iowa and Michigan, and then for the people that are listening, is this kind of like what you're seeing as well, like the excitement for the game and the competitive element of the game bringing some of this old fire back for people?
I would say so. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of positive discussion too. I would note. Sometimes the discussion ends up being similar to what we have here, but more on the negative side, to where they got to change that, or they got to change this or whatever. I have found that the discussion is normally positive, of like, did you see that Rebel salad? Like, what? Like, I gotta start building my own Rebel list. So it's like, and things of that nature, of just being like really, people really do prefer Moff Gideon over Iden. Like, maybe I'll have to give that a try. Like, I think the response has been overall, we'll call it curious. Just to add in on your kind of fear of missing out, that people are asking a lot of questions now, instead of just regurgitating the same opinion they've had since 2.5 came out.
I mean, that's what a world championship will do, right? We had a lot of I can't tell you the number of people when James and I were in chat going, I have not seen some of these chatters in a long time, going like, welcome back, and making these type of statements and pinging people in the chat, long time no see. People are curious. When you tell them that you have a sold out world championship, and we got competitive games and people who have been good at X-Wing for many, many years, players are making it into the cut, and it shows that skills translate. People who maybe immediately jumped off the boat when things changed might consider hopping back on. We'll see. Well, as for time, we are running later than I would have liked. I would have really liked to talk about Star Wars Celebration. They've so many cool reveals. We save it for next week, right? We talk about Star Wars Celebration next week with a focus. We'll first just kind of hit all the points in general, but then we'll talk about what from the little teases we got, how could that affect X-Wing? If you haven't checked it out yet, we give you basically a week to do some homework. If you don't want spoilers from us, you want to find it yourself, you got a week, and then next week we bust it all open. Sound good?
No spoilers at all. No spoilers at all.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Be smart, be safe, and go play some X-Wing. Gold Squadron out.